Welcome back to United Marxist Pact recording sessions. We're continuing our reading for the investigation into the working organization, which will bring about the dictatorship of the proletariat, which will in turn bring about the communist mode of production. Earlier today, we read through the preamble to the statutes of the Third Communist International and the manifesto/platform the party left of the Italian Socialist Party. We are going to now read the conditions of admission to the Communist International. Let's get right into it. This was the Second Congress of the Third International on July 30th, 1920. Let's get started. Forward. The First Congress of the Communist International did not draw up precise conditions for admission to the Communist International. Until the time of the First Congress was convened, there were in most countries only communist trends and groups. The Second Congress of the Communist International meets under different conditions. At the present time, there are in most countries not only communist trends and tendencies, but communist parties and organizations. Now, parties and groups which have not in fact become communist often turn to the Communist International in hope of joining it after recently belonging to the Second International. The Second International has been finally smashed to pieces. The parties in between and the center groups, which realize the hopelessness of the Second International, now try to lean upon the Communist International, which is becoming more and more powerful. In the process, however, they hope to retain an autonomy, which will permit them to continue their previous opportunist or centrist policies. To a certain extent, the Communist International is becoming fashionable. The desire of certain leading centrist groups to join the Communist International is an indirect confirmation of the fact that the Communist International has gained the sympathy of the overwhelming majority of class-conscious workers all over the world, and is becoming a force that grows more powerful each day. The Communist International is threatened by a danger of being watered down by elements characterized by vacillation and half measures, forces which have not yet finally discarded the ideology of the Second International. Moreover, to this day, there remain some big parties, Italy, Sweden, Norway, Yugoslavia, among others, whose majorities have adopted the standpoint of communism, a significant reformist and social pacifist wing, which is only waiting for the opportunity to raise its head again, to start active sabotage of the proletarian revolution, and thus help the bourgeoisie and the Second International. Not a single communist may forget the lessons of the Hungarian Soviet Republic. The fusion of the Hungarian communists with the so-called left social democrats cost the Hungarian proletariat dear. Wonder what that's about. This was written in 1920. Okay, continuing. Consequently, the Second Congress of the Communist International considers it necessary to establish quite precisely the conditions for the admittance of new parties and point out to these parties that have been admitted to the Communist International the duties incumbent on them. Okay, so real quick. We're going to take this and then go like that, and then take this. And we're going to write the party must keep itself clean of liquidationists and opportunists. Those joining the party must accept duties as part of conditions of admittance, which keep them from reformism, social-pacifism, centrism, etc. Okay, back to the text. The Second Congress of the Communist International lays down the following conditions of membership of the Communist International. 1. All propaganda and agitation must bear a really communist character and correspond to the program and decisions of the Communist International. All the party's press organs must be run by reliable communists who prove their devotion to the cause of the proletariat. The dictatorship of the proletariat must not be treated simply as a current formula learnt off by heart. Propaganda, for it must be carried out in such a way that its necessity is comprehensible to every simple worker, every woman worker, every soldier and peasant from the facts of their daily lives, which must be observed by our press and used day by day. The periodical and the other press and all the party's publishing institutions must be subordinated to the party leadership, regardless of whether at any given moment the party as a whole is legal or illegal. The publishing houses must not be allowed to abuse their independence and pursue policies that do not entirely correspond to the policies of the party. In the columns of the press, at public meetings, in the trade unions, in the cooperatives, wherever the members of the Communist International can gain admittance, it is necessary to brand not only the bourgeoisie, but also its helpers, the reformists of every shade, systematically and pitilessly. Okay? Take this and give it some real spacing, because I'm not a masochist. Maybe I am for doing all this reading, I don't know. Reading out loud. I'm not against reading, but reading out loud is difficult sometimes. Okay. All for admittance. One. All propaganda must be fully in line with party program, which would of course be really communist and be decisions of the Communist International. The press organs must be run by reliable communists. Propaganda must be directly applicable and understandable by the working class. In other words, memes. Need more memes. Periodical and other press. Okay, we already said that. All reformists, bourgeois influences, etc., must be attacked systematically within the press, public meetings, trade, or within all worker organizations. Okay. Back to the text. The second condition for membership in the Communist International. Every organization that wishes to affiliate to the Communist International must regularly and methodically remove reformists and centrists from every responsible post in the labor movement. Party organizers, editorial boards, trade unions, parliamentary factions, cooperatives, local government and replace them with tested communists without worrying unduly about the fact that, particularly at first, ordinary workers from the masses will be replacing, quote, experienced opportunists. Reminder that, we went through this whole big thing talking about how, in fact, these government positions are not some special thing that only really intelligent and experienced and professional and bourgeois people can do because they're just so special. In fact, it's actually rather simple, and it's only made labyrinthine in some cases by, tradition, which we're aiming at breaking down. Let's be clear here. Essentially, any job that doesn't require truly specialized labor, like being a scientist, for example, takes maybe 1 to 2 months to pick up. Most of the position within bourgeois states is made for, 90-year-old white men who don't know their ass from their elbow. Like, seriously. Okay, so 1. Methodically remove reformists and centrists from every responsible post, regardless of myths of need for great skill, experience, etc. in such positions. Party organizations, editorial boards, trade unions, parliamentary factions, co-ops, local government. Okay. Back to text. 3 for the admittance into the international. In almost every country in Europe and America, the class struggle is entering the phase of civil war. Under such conditions, the communists can place no trust in bourgeois legality. They have the obligation of setting up a parallel organizational apparatus which, at the decisive moment, can assist the party to do its duty to the revolution. In every country where a state of siege or emergency laws deprive the communists of the opportunity of carrying on all their work legally, it is absolutely necessary to combine legal and illegal activity. Okay. Create the basis to make illegal action possible. Liquidate liquidationists. In preparation for when bourgeoisie show their true face. That's really what that is. Because, the bourgeois order is an organic one. They will faff about and make any sort of movement impossible within their legal systems whenever the working class is doing something like demanding a raise in the minimum wage. But the instant it comes to anything that's protecting the bourgeois order, it will go so fast that your head will spin. So they will make the Communist Party illegal in a heartbeat. They did many times over. So you just can't have any trust in it. Just automatically assume that it will go away and that you should organize on the basis that will go away eventually. Okay. Actually, I won't say that. Organize on the basis that you assume that the bourgeoisie will make legal action impossible. All right. Four. Statute 4 for entering the Communist International. The duty of propagating communist ideas includes the specific obligation of forceful and systematic propaganda in the army. Where this agitation is interrupted by emergency laws, it must be continued illegally. Refusal to carry out such work would be tantamount to a betrayal of revolutionary duty and would be incompatible with membership of the Communist International. Yeah, so the people who would be against this are, for example, people who are against revolutionary defeatism. Agitate in the military illegally if necessary. Agitate to turn imperialist war into civil war. Okay. 5. Systematic and methodical agitation is necessary in the countryside. The working class will not be able to win if it does not have the backing of the rural proletariat, at least part of the poorest peasants, and if it does not secure the neutrality of at least part of the rest of the rural population through its policies. Communist work in the countryside is taking on enormous importance at the moment. It must be carried out principally with the help of revolutionary communist workers of the town and country who have connections with the countryside. To refuse to carry this work out, or to entrust it to unreliable, semi-reformist hands, is tantamount to renouncing the proletarian revolution. To note, one of the major tactics that the fascists had under Mussolini within their fascist unions was they would go out into the countryside and attack the rural peasantry and proletariat and whatnot and disrupt their own union organizing. They came from the cities to the countryside in order to disrupt unions of the communists. Or, well, anything that wasn't a fascist union. Okay, so agitate in rural areas among the poor and among the proletariat. This is mainly the way that I'm writing is mainly in terms of thinking about American conditions. So, just for anybody who's listening and who's unaware of that, I'm not doing a widespread analysis. Even if maybe I should, I'm just not particularly familiar with all the different areas. And in fact, I tend to come from the position that Maoist organizing is probably superior for anywhere in the global south. So, that's all I'll say on that end. Yeah, that's all that's said here. 6. Every party that wishes to belong to Communist International has the obligation to unmask not only open social patriotism, but also the insincerity and hypocrisy of social pacifism, to show the workers systemically that, without the revolutionary overthrow of capitalism, no international court of arbitration, no agreement to the limitation of armaments, no democratic reorganization of the League of Nations will be able to prevent new imperialist wars. Okay, pretty clear. Propaganda, or what is it that said here? Systematically attack notions of social patriotism, chauvinism, social pacifism, etc. Show that these are mere phrases under any bourgeois system or any bourgeois state, and therefore any calls for such are against the workers of the world and are not but class collaborationist opportunism. Okay. 7. The parties that wish to belong to the Communist International have the obligation of recognizing the necessity of a complete break with reformist and centrist politics, and of spreading this break among the widest possible circles of their party members. Consistent communist politics are impossible without this. The Communist International unconditionally and categorically demands that carrying out this break in the shortest possible time. The Communist International cannot tolerate a situation where notorious opportunists, as represented by Turati, Modigliani, Kautsky, Hilferding, Hilquit, Longuet, MacDonald, etc., had the right to pass as members of the Communist International. This could only lead to the Communist International becoming something similar to the wreck of the Second International. I think that we already engaged that. Reform. Yeah. Yeah, we already got that. We don't need to write that down. 8. A particularly marked and clear attitude on the question of the colonies and oppressed nations is necessary on the part of the communist parties of these countries, where bourgeoisies are in possession of colonies and oppressed other nations. Every party that wishes to belong to the Communist International has the obligation of exposing the dodges of its own imperialists in the colonies, supporting every liberation movement in the colonies, not only in words, but in deeds, of demanding that their imperialist compatriots should be thrown out of the colonies, decolonialism, of cultivating in the hearts of the workers in their own country a truly fraternal relationship to the working population in the colonies and to the oppressed nations, and of carrying out systematic propaganda among their own country's troops against any oppression of colonial peoples. Good shit. Good. Okay. Any imperialist or colonialist country, say, Communist Party, must one, recognize and reject entirely imperialism and colonialism of their national bourgeoisie. Support materially the liberation movements in the colonies, demand decolonization of their own nationals, and cultivate a fraternal bond between the working population and the colonies, and their own and of the working population of the colonies and their own propagandize to the armies of their nation against imperialism and colonialism, and to turn imperialist war into civil war. We'll say it over and over again. Okay, 9. Every party that wishes to belong to the Communist International must systematically and persistently develop communist activities within the trade unions, workers and works councils, the consumer cooperatives, and other mass workers' organizations. Within these organizations, it is necessary to organize communist cells, the aim of which is to win the trade unions, etc., for the cause of communism by incessant and persistent work. In their daily work, the cells have the obligation to expose everywhere the treachery of the social patriots and the vacillation of the centrists. The communist cells must be completely subordinated to the party as a whole. I think that we already covered that, but maybe that was in the previous one. Yeah, that was in the previous one. Okay. The party must organize within all worker organizations and agitate towards communism. In that agitation, they must reject calls for what is it that they call it nowadays? Left unity. That's right. Exposing the treachery of social chauvinists and centrists and the like. Communist cells within these organizations must be completely subordinated to the party as a whole. Okay. 21. Okay. 10. Every party belonging to the Communist International has the obligation to wage a stubborn struggle against the Amsterdam International of scab trade union organizations. It must expound as forcibly as possible among trade unionists the idea of the necessity of a break with the scab Amsterdam International. It must support the International Association of Red Trades unions affiliated with the Communist International at present in the process of formation with every means at its disposal. I'm going to add this, but not because this part of history is important, but rather because below the party must create a union of unions and support union activity. This union must be international in character. Okay. 11. Parties that wish to belong to the Communist International have the obligation to subject the personal composition of their parliamentary factions to review, to remove all unreliable elements from them and to subordinate these factions to the party leadership, not only in words, but also in deeds, by calling on every individual communist member of parliament to subordinate the whole of his activity to the interests of really revolutionary propaganda and agitation. I believe that we already have that. Yes, we do. We have it right here. It's just a repetition. Okay. 12. The parties belonging to the Communist International must be built on the basis of the principle of democratic centralism. In the present epoch of acute civil war, the Communist Party will only be able to fulfill its duty if it is organized in as centralist manner as possible. If iron discipline reigns within it, and if the party center, sustained by the confidence of the party membership, is endowed with the fullest rights and authority and the most far-reaching powers. Okay. Centralize. That's all that needs to be said there. Centralize. What do you mean for that? Just a single mean that says centralize, organize, whatever. 13. The communist parties of those countries in which the communists can carry out their work legally must from time to time undertake purges, re-registration of the membership of their party organizations in order to cleanse the party systematically of the pay bourgeois elements within it. Okay. Regular cleaning up of the party of backwards elements. 14. Every party that wishes to belong to the Communist International has the obligation to give unconditional support to every Soviet republic in its struggle against the forces of counter-revolution. The Communist parties must carry out clear propaganda to prevent the transport of war material to the enemies of the Soviet republics. They must also carry out legal or illegal propaganda, etc., with every means at their disposal among troops sent to stifle workers' republics. Is this before or after the mass invasion of the Soviet Union of 14 different nations, including enemies of one another of World War I? 14 nations invade Bolshevik. That was in 1918. Yeah. Oh, and the Allies withdrew their forces from Russia in 1925. So that was still going on. Jeez. Okay. That's not probably super important today, but at the same time, it kind of is. Like, if somebody tried to invade Cuba, whatever we feel about Cuba now, you should absolutely be like, no, we gotta organize and agitate. But anyway. 15. Parties that have still retained their old social democratic programs have the obligation of changing those programs as quickly as possible and working on a new communist program corresponding to particular conditions in the country in accordance with the decisions of the Communist International. As a rule, the program of every party belonging to the Communist International must be ratified by a regular Congress of the Communist International or by the Executive Committee. Should the Executive Committee of the Communist International reject the party's program, the party in question has a right of appeal to the Congress of the Communist International. There's no international these days, so until that's built, there's nothing to be written down there. 16. All decisions of the Congress of the Communist International, decisions of its Executive Committee, are binding on all parties belonging to the Communist International. The Communist International, acting under conditions of the most acute civil war, must be built in a far more centralist manner than was the case with the Second International. The process, the Communist International and its Executive Committee must, of course, in the whole of its activity, take into account the differing conditions under which the individual parties had to fight and work, and only take generally binding decisions in case where such decisions are possible. Okay? 17. In this connection, all those parties that wish to belong to the Communist International must change their names. Every party that wishes to belong to the Communist International must bear the name of Communist Party of this or that country, section of the Communist International. The question of the name is not formal, but highly political question of great importance. The Communist International has declared war on the whole bourgeois world and on all scab social democratic parties. The difference between the communist parties and the old official social democratic or socialist parties that have betrayed the banner of the working class must be clear to every simple toiler. 18. All the leading press of the parties in every country have the duty of printing all the important official documents of the Executive Committee and Communist International. 19. All parties that belong to the Communist International or have submitted an application for membership have the duty of calling a special Congress as soon as possible. In no case later than 4 months after the Second Congress of the Communist International, in order to check all these conditions. In this connection, all party centers must see that the decisions of the Second Congress are known to all their local organizations. 20. Those parties that now wish to enter the Communist International but have not yet radically altered their previous tactics must, before they join the Communist International, see to it that no less than 2/3 of the Central Committee and all their most important central institutions consist of comrades who, even before the Second Congress of the Communist International, spoke out unambiguously in public in favor of the entry of the party into the Communist International. Exceptions may be permitted with the agreement of the Executive Committee of the Communist International. The Executive Committee of the Communist International also has the right to make exceptions in relation to representatives of the centrist tendency, mentioned in paragraph 7. 21. Those party members who fundamentally reject the conditions and theses laid down by the Communist International are to be expelled from the party. The same will apply particularly to delegates to the Special Party Congress. I'll actually put this in and insert row below. Those who reject the program are to be expelled from the party. That simple. And that is the conditions to the admission to the Communist International. Thank you for coming for this session. Signing off. UMP.